Did you know that in 2025, a growing number of powerful countries are shutting their doors to Americans? It sounds wild, right? But it's happening. The world has seen a multitude of significant events recently, shifting the global landscape in profound ways. Today, we're going to delve into these developments and examine how various nations are becoming increasingly restrictive towards American citizens seeking to live, work, or travel within their borders. From popular vacation spots to dream destinations for expats, the world is undergoing major changes, and not in the way you'd expect. The reasons behind this trend are complex and multifaceted, involving economic pressures, political tensions, and evolving social sentiments. We'll explore these factors in detail throughout this video, and make sure you stick around until the end, because we'll be summarizing the key takeaways and offering some conclusions on what this means for Americans looking abroad. Before we dive into these shocking updates and explore the specifics for each country, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support is incredibly important for helping us continue to bring you timely analysis on global economics and politics. It truly helps promote our channel and allows us to reach a wider audience. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see our global community engage. Understanding these massive shifts affecting millions of Americans is crucial, whether you're currently living abroad, planning a move, or simply interested in global affairs. Believe me, this is the kind of information you don't want to miss. So, grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's jump right into it. All right, let's kick things off with Canada, a nation which has traditionally been perceived as one of the most accessible and welcoming destinations for Americans. For decades, the ease of crossing the border, the shared cultural elements, and the perception of a high quality of life made Canada a natural choice for many U.S. citizens looking for a change of scenery or new opportunities. I mean, it's just a stone's throw away for many, boasts stunning natural landscapes from coast to coast, offers universal health care, a significant draw for many Americans, and consistently ranks high in global quality of life indices. These factors have historically drawn in thousands of American expats, students seeking world-class education without the exorbitant price tags found south of the border, and even retirees looking for a safe and comfortable place to spend their golden years. The cultural similarities often meant an easier transition, and the economic integration through agreements like NAFTA and later USMCA seemed to promise continued ease of movement for professionals. However, the landscape is shifting dramatically. But guess what? In 2025, things are changing fast, and the once wide-open door is beginning to close. Canada is significantly tightening its immigration policies, implementing measures that will make it considerably harder for Americans to live, work, and study there compared to previous years. This isn't just a minor tweak, it's a fundamental rethinking of their approach, driven by a confluence of domestic pressures and changing global dynamics. The Canadian government is seriously reevaluating its immigration strategy, especially concerning foreign workers and international students. The reasons are complex. One major factor is the escalating housing crisis gripping many major Canadian cities. The influx of new residents, including immigrants and students, has put immense pressure on an already strained housing market, driving up prices and making affordability a major political issue. Consequently, the government is prioritizing housing availability for its own citizens. This translates directly into stricter immigration controls. They are actively working to manage population growth in a way that alleviates pressure on infrastructure and housing. This means fewer opportunities for Americans looking to settle in. Work permits, particularly those for temporary foreign workers in certain sectors, are getting slashed. The government is becoming more selective about the skills and professions it seeks to attract, focusing on high-demand fields while reducing intake in others. Student visa rules are also getting way stricter. Concerns about the integrity of the international student program and its impact on housing and resources have led to caps on the number of study permits issued and increased scrutiny of applicants' financial resources and intentions. For Americans dreaming of studying in Canada or using it as a pathway to residency, these changes present significant hurdles. The Canadian government is making it clear that its priority is managing growth and ensuring resources are available for Canadians first. Furthermore, There's a noticeable rise in anti-immigrant sentiment in some segments of Canadian society. While Canada remains officially multicultural and generally welcoming, economic anxieties and concerns about resource allocation have fueled political movements pushing for stricter immigration controls. Protests and political rhetoric increasingly focus on reducing foreign influence and prioritizing Canadian citizens for jobs and housing. This public pressure inevitably influences government policy, making it politically expedient to tighten the borders. This tougher stance is impacting visa renewals as well. Americans already residing in Canada might find their visa renewals facing more scrutiny than ever before. Requirements are becoming more stringent, and processes potentially longer. The days of relatively straightforward renewals might be numbered for some. So, if you're an American living in Canada or planning to move, be prepared for a more challenging environment. 2025 might indeed be your last opportunity to make the move with relative ease before these stricter policies fully take root. The Great White North, while still a wonderful country, is becoming a more exclusive club. Please, make sure you watch this video until the very end, as we will provide crucial conclusions and summaries of these global shifts. Next up, let's talk about Mexico, a country that's been a perennial favorite among Americans for years, offering a vibrant culture, warm climate, and, crucially, a significantly lower cost of living compared to the United States. Whether it's the sun-drenched beaches of Cancun and the Riviera Maya, the laid-back bohemian vibes of Tulum, or the colonial charm of San Miguel de Allende, Mexico offers an appealing and affordable escape just a short flight away from the U.S. For decades, it has been a haven for digital nomads taking advantage of the low costs and reliable infrastructure, retirees stretching their pensions further in comfortable climates, expats seeking a different lifestyle, and tourists simply looking for a vacation. Its proximity, familiar elements mixed with distinct cultural richness, and relatively easy entry requirements made it incredibly popular. Americans could often stay for extended periods on tourist visas, and residency options, particularly for retirees demonstrating a certain level of income, were quite accessible. This combination of factors led to large and established American communities in various parts of the country. But, mirroring the trend we're seeing elsewhere, in 2025, Mexico is starting to put up some serious roadblocks for Americans looking to settle down there long-term. The days of easily stringing together tourist visas or qualifying for residency with modest savings are rapidly disappearing. The Mexican government is cracking down significantly on the number of foreigners, especially Americans, who are making Mexico their de facto home without formalizing their status or contributing substantially to the economy. One of the most significant changes involves visa restrictions. The government is actively enforcing limitations on the length of stay for tourists and making it harder for individuals to use tourist visas for extended stays while working remotely or effectively living in the country. This is a direct response to concerns about infrastructure strain in popular areas and ensuring that foreigners residing long-term are doing so legally and contributing appropriately. New visa regulations are making it harder for expats, particularly digital nomads and those not formally retired, to stay long-term. The processes for obtaining temporary or permanent residency are becoming more complex and demanding. Simultaneously, stricter financial requirements are coming into play. To qualify for residency visas, Americans will now need to prove significantly higher income levels or savings than previously required. The specific amounts have increased substantially, putting residency out of reach for many who might have qualified just a few years ago. This affects retirees living on fixed incomes and younger expats or digital nomads who may not meet the new, elevated financial thresholds. Many people who have been comfortably living on a more modest budget might now struggle to meet these requirements when it comes time to renew their status or apply initially. This shift aims to ensure that long-term foreign residents are financially stable and less likely to burden social services, but it effectively closes the door for many middle-income Americans who saw Mexico as an affordable alternative. Beyond visa and financial hurdles, the Mexican government is also getting tougher on Americans who are working in the country, often remotely for foreign companies, without the proper work permits or tax registration. Mexican officials are increasing enforcement against illegal work. They recognize the growing trend of remote work, but are insisting it must be done within the legal framework, which often involves complex registration processes and, crucially, paying Mexican income taxes. They are not shy about handing out penalties, denying re-entry, or even pursuing deportations for individuals caught working without the correct permits. This is a major shakeup for the digital nomad and remote worker communities that have flourished in cities like Mexico City, Oaxaca, and Playa del Carmen. Furthermore, while often localized, there's growing resentment in some popular expat destinations about the impact of foreigners driving up housing costs and changing the local character, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as gentrificación. This sentiment, while not official policy, can create a less welcoming atmosphere on the ground and subtly influence local enforcement attitudes. For those Americans who have been enjoying the relaxed lifestyle and affordability, these new regulations and enforcement measures could be a real wake-up call. It's clear that Mexico is tightening its grip, seeking greater control over who stays long-term and ensuring they contribute economically. For many Americans, that dream of a peaceful, low-cost life south of the border may be slipping away as the requirements become more stringent, and the welcome mat, while still out, comes with more conditions attached. The era of easy, informal extended stays is definitively ending. Now, let's take a look at China, a country that has long been a significant destination for Americans, acting as a major hub for business travelers, international students seeking educational opportunities, and expats drawn by the dynamic economy and unique culture. For decades, particularly following its opening up, China offered immense opportunities for American businesses and individuals. The sheer scale of the market, the manufacturing prowess, and the rapid development created a powerful magnet. Cities like Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen became bustling centers of international commerce, attracting a considerable American presence. However, the relationship between the United States and China has become increasingly strained in recent years, and this geopolitical friction is having a profound impact on the ability of Americans to live, work, or even visit the country. In 2025, these trends are accelerating, making China a far more challenging environment for Americans than it once was. The political tensions are multifaceted, encompassing disputes over trade practices, technological competition, particularly in areas like semiconductors and artificial intelligence, human rights concerns, and the ongoing sensitive situation regarding Taiwan. These high-level disagreements are fueling diplomatic friction, leading to reciprocal measures that directly affect citizens. This friction is spilling over significantly into the immigration and visa space. China has already started denying visas to several high-profile American citizens, including academics, journalists, and individuals associated with organizations critical of the Chinese government. While these might seem like targeted actions, they create a chilling effect and signal a broader shift towards greater scrutiny of all American applicants. It's expected that this trend will only continue and potentially broaden in 2025. Stricter visa policies are being put in place, not just for those in sensitive fields, but also for American business travelers and students. Application processes are becoming more opaque, requiring more extensive documentation, and facing longer processing times with less certainty of approval. Security checks are intensifying, and even short-term business or tourist visas are not guaranteed. Renewing existing visas or residency permits is also becoming more difficult for Americans already in the country. The government is exercising greater control over the foreign population, and Americans, given the geopolitical climate, are under a particularly watchful eye. The overall atmosphere is becoming increasingly tense. For Americans trying to work or study in China, you can expect more government scrutiny of your activities and affiliations. Restrictions on movement or access to certain information, while always present to some degree, might become more pronounced. The ability to operate freely, especially for businesses, is being curtailed by new regulations, data security laws, and an environment that increasingly prioritizes domestic companies and national security concerns. Many U.S.-based companies operating in China are already reassessing their presence, facing pressures ranging from supply chain disruptions to regulatory hurdles and the threat of potential nationalization in extreme scenarios. This makes long-term career prospects for Americans in China far less certain than they were a decade ago. The Chinese government is keeping a closer eye on all foreigners, and that scrutiny inevitably includes Americans. If you are an American currently residing in China or contemplating a move, you must be acutely aware of the heightened political risks and the potential for sudden policy shifts. The environment is becoming less predictable, and visa renewals could become a significant hassle, potentially denied with little explanation. It's not out of the question that more Americans could be asked to leave or find themselves unable to return as diplomatic relations worsen. The dream of leveraging China's economic dynamism is now tempered by the harsh realities of geopolitical tension. China, once a land of seemingly boundless opportunity for some Americans, is looking less and less like a viable long-term option as its doors become heavier and harder to push open. The political climate shift means many Americans could find themselves effectively locked out of one of the world's largest economies shortly. Number 4. Dubai. Next, let's head over to Dubai, the glittering emirate in the United Arab Emirates, which has long been renowned for its glamorous lifestyle, tax-free living, and a booming, diversified economy. For years, Dubai actively courted foreigners, particularly Westerners, positioning itself as a global hub for business, finance, tourism, and luxury living. Its futuristic skyline, world-class infrastructure, and status as a major international travel crossroads made it an incredibly attractive destination. It became a hotspot for American expats seeking high-paying jobs, entrepreneurial opportunities, and a lifestyle characterized by luxury and convenience. The promise of no income tax was a massive draw, allowing professionals in fields ranging from real estate and finance to technology and hospitality to accumulate wealth rapidly. The government fostered a relatively open and welcoming environment for skilled foreign workers, recognizing their crucial role in driving the Emirates' rapid growth and development. Opportunities seemed endless, fueled by massive investments in infrastructure, tourism, and technology. But as with our other examples, the tide is turning. In 2025, Dubai, and the UAE more broadly, is starting to make things a lot more difficult for foreigners, particularly those perceived as not contributing significantly enough to the high-value sectors of the economy. While still seeking foreign talent and investment, the focus is sharpening, becoming more selective and demanding. New residency rules and economic policies are subtly, and sometimes overtly, shifting the landscape. The era of relatively easy entry and stay for a wide range of Western expats is evolving. One key change is the implementation and refinement of programs like the Golden Visa. While designed to attract long-term residents, these visas come with hefty requirements, typically demanding substantial investment in property, establishing a significant business, or possessing exceptional talents in specific, high-demand fields like science, technology, or the arts. For the average American professional who doesn't meet these high thresholds, obtaining long-term secure residency is becoming more challenging. Standard work visas are tied to employment, and the process, while generally efficient, is facing increased scrutiny regarding the necessity of hiring a foreigner over an Emirati national, especially as Emiratization policies gain traction. Furthermore, the cost of living in Dubai, despite the lack of income tax, has been steadily rising. Housing, education, and healthcare costs can be substantial, eroding some of the financial benefits. While still potentially lucrative for high earners, it's becoming less of a straightforward path to easy savings for everyone. The government is also subtly tightening regulations around business operations and employment. While still business-friendly, there's an increasing emphasis on compliance, proper documentation, and adherence to labor laws, including those related to Emiratization quotas in certain sectors. Working without proper sponsorship or engaging in freelance activities outside the designated frameworks, like freelance permits, is facing stricter enforcement. The once somewhat relaxed atmosphere for foreigners is being replaced with policies that prioritize residents who demonstrably contribute to the city's strategic economic goals. The government is focusing more on attracting and retaining individuals who bring significant capital, establish businesses that create jobs for locals, or possess highly specialized skills critical to Dubai's future development plans. If you're an American living in Dubai and not working in a high-paying, high-skilled job, or if your visa is dependent on employment in less prioritized sectors, your days of enjoying a relatively uncomplicated tax-free lifestyle could be numbered. The government is tightening the rules for visas, and U.S. passport holders, while still generally welcome compared to some nationalities, are facing higher fees for services and more scrutiny during application and renewal processes. If you're an American dreaming of that tax-free life in Dubai, understand that the requirements are becoming more demanding. The focus is shifting towards ensuring that expats contribute meaningfully and demonstrably to the city's economy, whether through business, investment, or high-level professional work. The era of easy, carefree luxury living for a broad spectrum of American expats in Dubai may soon be coming to an end, replaced by a more selective approach favoring those who offer significant economic value. Number 5. Russia. Now, let's talk about Russia, a country that has already made it tough for Americans to visit or reside in recent years. But in 2025, it's going even further, bordering on becoming almost entirely off-limits for most U.S. citizens. The growing political tensions between the United States and Russia, dramatically exacerbated by the ongoing war in Ukraine and the subsequent international sanctions, have led to a near-complete breakdown in normal diplomatic and consular relations. These tensions, which have been building for some time over various geopolitical issues, are now having a severe and direct impact on American citizens with any ties to or interest in Russia. Russia is aggressively tightening its grip on foreign visitors and residents, and Americans are feeling the brunt of these increasingly isolationist and often retaliatory policies. Visa denials for Americans are skyrocketing. Obtaining any type of Russian visa, tourist, business, student, or private, has become an arduous and unpredictable process, often resulting in rejection with little or no explanation. The few visas being issued typically involve intense scrutiny and lengthy background checks. Travel itself has become complicated and risky. The U.S. Department of State maintains strong travel advisories urging Americans not to travel to Russia due to the potential for harassment, wrongful detention, arbitrary enforcement of local laws, and the limited ability of the U.S. Embassy to provide assistance. Several high-profile detentions of American citizens on charges widely viewed as politically motivated have underscored these risks. For Americans currently residing in Russia, the situation is precarious. They face the constant possibility of visa renewal denials or difficulties extending their stay. The political climate means they are subject to heightened suspicion and scrutiny from authorities. Activities that were once considered normal might now be viewed with suspicion. Financial transactions have also become incredibly difficult due to sanctions severing many links between Russian and Western banking systems, making it hard to access funds or conduct business. Furthermore, the operational environment for any remaining American businesses or organizations is extremely challenging. Many U.S.-based companies operating in Russia have already been forced to shut down or sell their assets, often at significant losses, due to sanctions, political pressure, or the direct threat of nationalization by the Russian government. This has eliminated many job opportunities that previously drew Americans to the country. The Russian government is becoming more and more selective about who it lets in and who it allows to stay, often using visa policies as a tool of political leverage. Whether you're a tourist hoping to see Red Square, a student enrolled in a Russian university, a business traveler, or someone with family ties, the chances of being granted entry or allowed to remain are getting slimmer by the day. If you are currently in Russia, your visa renewal could be denied abruptly, or you might face increasing restrictions and surveillance as the country continues to close its doors to those from nations it deems unfriendly, a category the U.S. firmly occupies. The isolationist policies growing in Russia mean that many Americans could soon find themselves completely kicked out or unable to enter the country altogether. With strained diplomatic relations showing no sign of imminent improvement, this once popular, albeit complex destination for some Americans is becoming increasingly inaccessible and potentially hazardous. It's another stark reminder that the world map for American travelers and expats is shifting rapidly, and Russia is actively putting up formidable barriers that make it much harder, and often unwise, for Americans to enter or remain. Number 6. Japan. Now, let's head to Japan, a country that has long held a strong allure for Americans, Renowned for its unique blend of ancient traditions and cutting-edge modernity, its safety, efficiency, and distinct cultural landscape, it has consistently been a top destination for Americans. Whether for work opportunities in technology and finance, for high-quality education, or simply to experience its rich culture, cuisine, and natural beauty. From the bustling energy of Tokyo and Osaka to the serene temples of Kyoto and the snowy landscapes of Hokkaido, Japan offers a diverse range of experiences that have attracted a steady stream of American students, professionals, and tourists. However, beneath the surface of this popular destination, changes are underway. In 2025, Japan is quietly but firmly making it harder for Americans and foreigners in general to live, work, and stay long-term in the country. While Japan has always maintained relatively strict immigration controls compared to some Western nations, recent shifts indicate a subtle tightening, moving away from an implicitly welcoming stance for certain types of stays towards a more selective approach. While it may not be making as much noise with dramatic policy shifts as some other countries on our list, Japan's tightening immigration policies are having a noticeable impact on Americans hoping to settle there. Visa rejections for Americans, particularly for longer-term work or residency permits, are reportedly on the rise. The process for obtaining and renewing visas, especially those not tied to major corporations or highly specialized skills, is becoming more scrutinized and complex. The Japanese government, while grappling with the challenges of an aging population and labor shortages in certain sectors, remains cautious about large-scale immigration. There's a growing, albeit often unspoken, emphasis on preserving cultural identity and social harmony, which translates into a preference for more controlled and selective immigration. This means that while highly skilled professionals, researchers, or those with significant investment might still find pathways, it's becoming more difficult for others, such as those seeking general employment, English teaching positions, which were once a common entry point, or freelance opportunities. The government is introducing stricter regulations around work visas. Employers sponsoring foreign workers face increased compliance requirements, and there's a stronger push to ensure that positions cannot be filled by Japanese nationals before hiring a foreigner. This makes it more challenging for Americans, especially recent graduates or those without specialized expertise, to secure jobs that come with visa sponsorship. If you're hoping to live in Japan and build a career there, you'll likely need to navigate a more complex bureaucratic process and potentially face greater competition for sponsored positions than ever before. The government is placing more emphasis on hiring locals over foreign workers, driven partly by economic considerations and partly by underlying nationalist sentiments that prioritize the domestic workforce. This translates into fewer opportunities for Americans seeking entry-level or mid-career positions, unless they possess specific, in-demand skills. On top of the policy shifts, Japan's unique and demanding work culture, along with language barriers, continues to present significant integration challenges for many foreigners. While not a new phenomenon, the tightening visa environment means there's less leeway. Expats need to demonstrate clear value and adaptability. Japan's changing policies are a wake-up call for those who might have previously viewed it as a relatively accessible long-term destination, perhaps taking its welcoming nature towards tourists and certain professionals for granted. For many Americans, 2025 could be the year they find that their opportunities to live and work in Japan are slowly diminishing unless they fit into very specific, high-value categories. The dream of immersing oneself in Japanese life is becoming a bit more elusive as the requirements stiffen and the focus shifts inward. As we've explored across Canada, Mexico, China, Dubai, Russia, and Japan, a clear global trend emerges in 2025. The era of relatively easy movement and settlement for Americans abroad is facing significant headwinds. While each nation has its unique drivers, be it economic pressures, housing crises, geopolitical tensions, rising nationalism, or a desire for greater control over immigration, the cumulative effect is a world where doors are becoming heavier and entry requirements more stringent for U.S. citizens. This isn't just about tourism. It fundamentally impacts the ability of Americans to pursue opportunities build lives, and establish long-term connections in other parts of the globe. Several common threads weave through these national policy shifts. Economic protectionism is a major factor. In an era of global uncertainty and slower growth, many countries are prioritizing their own citizens for jobs and resources. This manifests as stricter work permit regulations, increased requirements for employers to justify hiring foreigners, and a general leaning towards bolstering the domestic labor market, as seen clearly in Canada and Japan. Housing crises, particularly acute in desirable cities in countries like Canada, are directly fueling anti-immigration sentiment and policy responses aimed at curbing population growth to alleviate pressure on infrastructure and affordability. Nationalism and a desire to preserve cultural identity are also playing a significant role. While expressed differently, from Russia's overt isolationism to Japan's subtle tightening and Mexico's pushback against perceived cultural displacement in some areas, there's a growing global undercurrent favoring national interests and identities over open-door policies. Geopolitical tensions are undeniably reshaping the landscape, most starkly in the cases of China and Russia, where deteriorating relations with the U.S. translate directly into visa restrictions, heightened scrutiny, and increased risks for American citizens. Even in allied nations, underlying political shifts and domestic pressures are leading governments to reevaluate and often restrict immigration flows. Furthermore, the legacy of the global pandemic seems to have spurred a rethinking of border controls and the value proposition of different types of immigration, leading many countries to become more selective, favoring high-skilled workers, investors, or those who meet specific economic criteria, as exemplified by Dubai's golden visa focus and Mexico's increased financial requirements for residency. Stricter enforcement is another key aspect. Countries are moving away from lax enforcement of visa rules, particularly concerning long-term stays on tourist visas or unauthorized remote work, impacting digital nomads and informal expats in places like Mexico. What does this mean for Americans? The key takeaway is that planning a move abroad, whether for work, retirement, or a long-term stay, requires more diligence, resources, and patience than ever before. Thorough research into the latest, constantly evolving visa requirements is essential. Financial thresholds are rising, bureaucratic processes are becoming more complex, and the geopolitical climate adds a layer of unpredictability. The assumption that an American passport guarantees easy entry or long-term stay in many parts of the world no longer holds true. In conclusion, the global landscape for American expats and long-term travelers is undergoing a significant transformation in 2025. The trends we've observed across diverse nations like Canada, Mexico, China, the UAE, specifically Dubai, Russia, and Japan, point towards a more restrictive and selective future. Economic anxieties, housing shortages, resurgent nationalism, and complex geopolitical dynamics are all contributing factors pushing countries to tighten their borders and reevaluate their immigration policies. For Americans, this means the dream of easily moving abroad, finding work, or retiring comfortably in many popular destinations is becoming more challenging. Increased visa scrutiny, higher financial requirements, stricter enforcement on work regulations, and the chilling effect of political tensions are creating formidable barriers. While opportunities still exist, particularly for the highly skilled or wealthy, the era of relatively open doors and straightforward processes seems to be drawing to a close in many parts of the world. Navigating this new reality requires careful planning, substantial resources, and a keen awareness of the ever-shifting rules and risks. The world is indeed changing, and for Americans looking outward, the welcome mat is often being pulled back, demanding more than ever before for the privilege of entry and stay. Thank you for joining us on our channel for this important update.